Welcome in, Bears fans, to this episode of Bare Bones. As always, I am Mason West, and as usually, I am joined by Danny Meehan.
Usually,
and in this episode, we're going to take a quick peek back at the Eagles game. We're going to go over some of the injury news that's been going on, and we're going to preview that Bills game. Hey, Danny, did you know that the Bears didn't have a single Pro Bowler?
I am not shocked by that. Do you want to see my shocked face?
The exact same as your regular face because the Bears just aren't very good.
I am shocked that we didn't hear Fields just because he literally did something only two other players in NFL history have done. But I also kind of get it when they're not a great offense as is.
Yeah, and then, it's all about, whether you're talking about things like Pro Bowl, and we talked about that with, like, Roquan Smith for years. I've always thought he's been snubbed year in and year out. He got caught behind guys like Bobby Wagner and Fred Warner, of course, too. Just NFC was stronger in linebackers. But the Bears also were never consistently very good. So it's hard to give the Pro Bowl nods to not good players on not good teams. But so outside of Justin Fields, is there a single other Bear that you would have said, yeah, they could have been in consideration?
I mean, it's kind of like you're barking up the wrong tree at that point. Like Tevin Jenkins maybe, but that's kind of where the argument stops, right? Unless you really want to give it to Cole Kmet and his love affair with the ground.
Yeah, honestly, that was kind of where mine was too. Tevin Jenkins was the only other one that truly crossed my mind. Obviously, like in the tight end range, like you got some guys like George Kittle is still George Kittle. I mean, even when his stats don't match it, like his impact on the game is still so great, at least in my opinion.
Right.
It is. But anyway, the other thing is too, and I was mentioning this earlier to you, I got attacked on Twitter today.
Why do you hate Kirk Cousins?
That's the question. Faithful. It rides strong, which is funny because when you look in the offseason and the preseason, the Vikings fans seem to like kind of hate Kirk Cousins, and then week one hits and he's their savior. I don't get it.
Yeah, it's a weird dynamic with Kirk, right? Because it's like at the end of the day, he's still Kirk Cousins, and there's only certain things he can and can't do. But I mean, you take his average season to this point in his career is the best quarterbacking season in Bears history. So it's like you got to put into perspective. Now, granted, the Bears' history of quarterbacking is meh, to say it nicely. But I mean, I get it. Like Kirk, I think, is very much at best a product of what's put around him. He's never going to elevate anything that's given to him. Like if he is a plug and chug, hey, this is a starting NFL quarterback, and you gave him Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, and Dalvin Cook. It's like it's enough to make him look good. But you couldn't put him in Chicago and expect him to have this same level of production, if that makes sense.
So here's a question. Was Geno Smith, did he deserve the Pro Bowl?
I think so.
And if you took Geno Smith and put him on the Bears, what would he look like?
Probably like Geno Smith.
Right, yeah. It's a product of a couple things, right? The NFC is just weak at quarterback. The AFC is where all the good quarterbacks are for the most part, especially with Aaron Rodgers falling off and things like that. It's basically Jalen Hurts and everybody else. And Kirk just lucked out in that respect.
Yeah, I mean, even like with the arguable best quarterback to ever live, clearly the most accomplished quarterback to ever live, Tom Brady is not Tom Brady anymore.
Yeah, that whole situation is weird because, I mean, you watch him play and physically he looks fine. Like the ball's getting to where it in general needs to be. But I don't know if it was just with Bruce Arians leaving or what. One of the other things, too, with them is they are just decimated on the offensive line. I mean, they have no linemen left.
And that started early in training camp, right? Because didn't Jensen lose the season right before they even broke camp?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean the Pro Bowl's weird this year, but hopefully brighter futures ahead for potential Bears Pro Bowlers, just not in 2022. But we're gonna look at that Eagles game. First is our knee-jerk reaction, just like a hot take from the last game. Mine is that the offensive line is not good. 6 sacks, 6 QB hits. Only 39% of their pass blocking are true pass sets, which is the third lowest in the NFL. And essentially that's the coaches doing their best to hide that this whole line sucks. And that's for good reason, because they give up pressure on 52% of their true pass sets, which is second worst in the NFL. So this connects back to my rant from last week.
Who's the worst?
Oh, I don't know. I saw the Bears and I moved on.
Okay. I mean, all you had to do was go down one more team. Like,
no, I did. I put in a lot of effort into the show today, which you'll see later. And that was the end of my list of things to do. But this connects to my rant from last week. Offensive line grades are that ESPN does, PFF does. Watch the games. This offensive line is not good. It keeps getting worse.
No, it's
not. We'll talk about this a little later. Cody Whitehair is broken physically right now. Jenkins went out. All that stuff. Yeah, just bad.
Yeah. My knee-jerk reaction, it's more so I'm ready to pay Jalen Johnson at like name your price kind of thing. I think Jalen Johnson is outstanding. Like, and I know AJ Brown got his yards and all that, but like this is the first time they've ever asked him to trail, where he's just following around and hawking around on AJ Brown. And this is your job today, Jalen. Do not let AJ Brown beat us. Yes, AJ Brown, I believe they gave up the most single game receiving yards ever in team history to one player, and that was AJ Brown, who he was covering. But it's so much bigger than that. If you watched that game, you know that he was causing fits for AJ Brown at points where he just could not play the game he wanted to play. There was the pass breakup in the end zone. There was a pass breakup off the left sideline, or the bottom sideline on the off the left hash to our screen, right? So, and overall, I think that maybe the stability overall in the secondary is better than I would have guessed. When you look forward with Eddie Jackson's coming back, and he seemed to have a bit of a career resurgence under this staff in this, quote unquote Tampa 2 system. Jaquan Brisker is still getting better every week. He's also leading the team in sacks. Take from that what you will, but it's a fun but bad stat when 3 sacks is your team lead. And, he had his growing pain on that, that zero blitz where he came flying down and just wrong side on the design quarterback run. And I also could not be happier for the performance that Kyler Gordon had, where I thought he really deserves some credit. Like, he had his moments of where he still looked like a rookie, but he had a fumble recovery. He had an interception. Like, it's just one of those things. He needed a confidence building game, and right back after a pretty severe concussion, it sounds like, to have that kind of performance. I could not be happier for that kid.
Well, and it's funny you said that, because to be perfectly honest, was literally the exact thing that the Bears might have a secondary. And it was all the points you just said that, was this Gordon's best game? Yeah, I think it was absolutely his best game. You talked about the takeaways he had, used 4 times as a blitzer. And it's against a good quarterback in Jalen Hurts. And where you have no pass rush, like the Bears have no pass rush, it's hard to cover. And when you ask someone like Jalen Johnson to cover AJ Brown all game long, he's going to give up some catches. There was the one in particular where the only one I was upset about was this one, where he gave up the reception and then didn't get AJ out of bounds, and he just ran off. I mean, that was where a big chunk of those yards came from. So, I would keep that in mind, that it was really off of that one play, and B, but he still needs to make that play, right? That's happened a couple other times where didn't touch the offensive player when they were supposed to be down, things like that. That has to get cleaned up. One other person I want to give credit to is in part of that secondary is Jalen Jones. Since he's playing well, and he still has some struggles too, don't get me wrong, there's some hiccups there, but since he's playing well enough on the outside, that allows Kyler Gordon to go in the slot on the inside, and I think that's letting Gordon be a little more comfortable versus having to jump around and do what he had to do the first couple weeks of the season. So I think that's helped them out a lot too.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's been kind of a weird late season revelation where it's like, I'm not sure if he's a starter in this league, but I think he's a rotational defensive back where if a guy goes down, he at very least can come in there and give you some solid reps and make it feel like the fall off isn't just so tremendous that you're like, all right, well, so-and-so's hurt. Guess we're screwed.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you had highlighted too, this whole season's all about what's going to be coming up next year. So next year with Eddie coming back, Brisker hopefully take another step, Gordon take another step. that makes your offseason maybe a little easier. Do you really have to spend as much thought process and time, money, or draft equity on the secondary? Hopefully not. So now you can focus on some of these other areas of need. What is your, to be perfectly honest?
That there's just still so much work to do all over the roster in general. Like, there's no pass rush being generated. The linebackers outside of Sanborn are leaving a lot to be desired. Like, I think I'm completely done with the Velus Jones Jr. experiment and ending in all forms. Like, the guy can't even run an end around. It's absurd, like, how little trust he has for a guy who's already going to be 26 going into his second season. Like, I don't know what you can honestly ask him. Like, what do you trust him to do?
There was one play from that game when I went back and watched where he was just running a go route on the bottom edge of the screen.
He didn't finish
it. The alternate too, and he tails it off, which lets his defenders stay there. And then Cole Kmet's route Cole Kmet should have gotten to his spot faster, but Cole Kmet's route, like, it was too congested, so Justin couldn't throw it, so he had to scramble. Just run fast. That, like, literally just run.
The one thing you're supposed to be able to do is run fast in a straight line, and you didn't do it. Like, what are we doing here? And then obviously the offensive line, and I mean the one positional group I don't think they really need a ton of help in, and that's even dependent on if they bring Monty back, which I don't think the running back room needs a ton of help. Everything else just needs help. Like, what it speaks volumes when Nsimba Webster gets elevated from the practice squad and gets immediately more targets and asked to run more complex route, or has more complex route asks of him, and he just got up to the active roster.
Yeah, exactly. And no one wants Velus Jones to fail, right? If anything, it's the opposite.
No,
right? We want our draft picks to do well.
Jones.
We like these people as people. You're just not good at football. And I want you to be just good at football. That's all I want. Now that we're laughing, we found this humorous. Mine is the continued struggles in some of the short game, specifically some of these screens. Now, you do have to keep calling them, but I find it funny that they get called and I find some pretty big situations. Like, you got some momentum, and then it's like, let's run a screen. And then right now, Justin's still struggling to grip it and rip it. And when you had a first down conversion, and now it's first down again, let's run a screen, and Justin throws the ball behind in front of the intended screen, and now it's just 2nd and 10. That's really takes the wind out of your sails. So, I find it funny that this is still such a struggle, whether it's from the play calling or the execution perspective.
Yeah, I agree. It is funny. My humorous thing was just kind of what I alluded to just now. It's like Nsimba Webster just came in and immediately had to show he was a better wide receiver than the guy who they just spent a 3rd round pick on. Like, I genuinely asked this question: if they were to release Velus right now, would anyone even claim him?
Probably. I think some. No, actually, I'm gonna say no. I was gonna say some team would do it just for the maybe the return thought process for playoff stuff, but no, I would say no.
All right, what's next?
Next, we have our concussed corner. So something from the last game that we did not like, a decision that's so odd, the person must have been concussed. What did you have for that one?
Oh, boy. Eddie Pinheiro, or not Eddie Pinheiro, I just got my old Bears kickers mixed up. Cairo Santos clearly saying, I can't kick. And just what the hell? Like, you see him clearly like motion to like, hey, like the kill signal, like, hey, I can't do this.
Right.
Like, and then I was listening to the score a couple times this week, and they had Patrick Manley on, who, when he speaks on special teams, you kind of listen because, hey, he's the Bears, the most tenured Bear of all time, and he was a long snapper forever. If anyone's going to know about field goal kicking and like how those guys are going to interact and think, it's going to be him. And he said something along the lines of, he's not entirely sure, because the only person in the world who's going to know if he is doing this is he's thinking that that Cairo Santos might be protecting his own stats because he's hit 90+% of his kicks this year. Is he doing this for self-preservation? I mean, given he's already missed 5 extra points on the year.
I mean, that could be entirely true, right? I mean, at the end of the day, kicker is measured by.
And I'm not sitting here pointing the finger saying this is what he's doing. I just thought it was an interesting point from Patrick Manley, who was in those rooms for so many years, saying a lot of times you'll see guys start to protect themselves, especially in a lost season.
Yeah, exactly. And it's entirely possible that that's happening, especially when you feel like maybe you're looking over your shoulder a little bit, you have a couple misses. That could be happening. And then, of course, the other opposite could be true, where it's just like, look, there's swirling winds at Soldier Field, and this is a close game. I don't want – this is just not a makeable kick right now. It makes more sense just to play the field position battle. And the only person that knows the truth of that is Cairo.
Yeah, but it's like Mason, it was a 40 – what was it? Would have been a 48-yard kick, 49-yard kick?
Yep.
Like that's where we're at with Cairo, where it's like inside of 50, we know him to be – pretty reliable, if not automatic. And you see him waving that off? Like, do we even think that they're going to attempt a field goal this weekend with reportedly up to 40 or 50 mile an hour gusts of wind off Lake Michigan?
Over 40 is a big question mark at this rate.
Right.
Which you can't have. But at the same time, what do you do in this situation? Let's say Cairo they figure out like, dude, Cairo, you lost a step, or you're trying to protect your stats, or whatever the case may be. Are we moving on from Cairo? Are we going to Kicking Derby 2.0? Like, ugh.
You know, it's one of those things. Like, I think everyone will take for granted how hard it is or how great it is to have just stability at that position. Like, yeah, you can't kick more than a 50 or 52 yarder with him because he just lacks the leg strength. But he's reliable. He does make his kicks. I really think we've forgotten in short order how hard it is to find a good, reliable kickers, because how hard was it after Robbie left? Robbie Gold left, and it was musical chairs. Like, all right, who's kicking this week?
Well, and if you remember that whole dynamic too, Robbie left and everyone was up in arms because, Fox didn't want to deal with him. And then he went and Robbie himself said that for him, being let go like that was eye-opening and let him go back to the basics and reset. And then, right, he goes to the Giants and starts to have a bit of a renaissance. Then he ends up with the 49ers. But he, again, goes back and says, me being cut was the best thing for getting me back on the right track. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, I don't want to have to go through that again, though.
Yeah, anyway, your confusing decision that made you think someone was concussed.
So this is a point of contention you and I have had a couple of times.
Oh boy.
And at the end of the day, it's Justin's run usage. He had 15 carries for 95 yards, which is great for the offense, right? This is how the offense needs to work if it's to be a successful offense. But when you add in the hits, like I mentioned earlier, right, with the offensive line giving up 6 sacks, when you look at some of how the runs end, because yes, there are the times Justin runs out of bounds, but there's also the times where he slides very upright and Ndamukong Suh comes and punches him in the back of the head. You have the ones where he doesn't slide at all because they're running this weird like midline run game where there's no outside. You can't get outside because the left tackle is trying to seal so you can go upfield, but the Eagles played it well, so he just got smacked in the face basically. When you add up all those hits, so now you're in the 20s of just contact, that's tough for me. And we saw that, right? Because he had to leave the game with cramps. Justin takes care of his body. He spends more time working on his body and trying to keep it tip-top shape than almost anyone out there. But so when you layer the hits in, and he already had a shoulder issue, when you layer in the cramps and all those things, to me, like the 15 carries is just a touch too much, just a touch.
I can see that. The only other question I'll pose to you, Mason, just because you'll probably have a better understanding it than I, he's never been this kind of runner in his career. Right. We know he takes good care of himself, but how much of it is just muscle fatigue from him using his body in a way he's just never historically used it as? Like,
it's a huge part of it. Absolutely.
Right. So obviously it's all guessing game, but we know that this is going to be a part of his game now. Maybe not to this extent, hopefully not to this extent, because that'll mean they likely didn't do enough for him this offseason to show him progress more as a passer, especially in the short and like small intermediate game, which is where he really struggles, not the mid to long game. So I just wonder, like, if and how his training regimen is going to change in this offseason to allow his body to keep doing that. Because we know he takes great care of himself, but it's hard to adapt to that style on the fly and just completely change your training regimen to just do that. It's like asking for like more basic terms, someone who's been a bodybuilder their whole life to all of a sudden be like, hey, you're going to be training for power now. Nothing but power. That's just such a complete change up in style of training, right? So it's, just an easier example for maybe someone to understand.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I mean, that's something that's going to change a bit in terms of the focus for his offseason. And the other things, like those secondary, tertiary layers should also help. So if you get an offensive line that isn't, Swiss cheese, now you're not having to scramble as much in the pocket trying to find a receiver. You're not having to scramble and leave the pocket like we talked about on that Bayless Jones bad route. That could be a throw because now your weapons maybe are better and actually doing what they're supposed to do. So, it's more about total contact you're taking versus how the contact happens. Because in like the group chat we're in, someone brought up a very good point of you can get hurt just as bad sitting in the pocket as you can on a scramble. And that's absolutely true.
That leads me to the thing I've said on the show before. Most of his big shots don't come on runs. They come when he's trying to make a throw and he just gets lit up.
Right. And we have to also just factor in the bucket of water thing, right? Like you can get a gallon of water dumped on you, but you can also have a cup thrown on you multiple times and you're still going to be just as wet.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about balancing both. And it's tough because you're right. I mean, you said this on multiple shows. This is the only way the offense works. And you have to find the balance of the offense working and Justin surviving. So like where's that balance?
Right. And we're past, and I think personally we're past the reps argument. He's gotten the reps. The game is slowing down, has clearly slowed down for him to an extent. Like, this is about him just, he's an ultimate competitor. He does not want to be taken out of the game. He wants to play. So it's more like balancing protection versus where do you draw the line of you need to pull him just for his own safety?
It's an interesting question. Actually, okay, so before we move on to the next dropping stat, let's say, for the sake of argument, you are Ryan Poles and you're in a meeting with Matt Eberflus, and all of a sudden the bat phone rings and you find out, hey, like we found out through blah, blah, blah. It's the final week of the season. The Vikings are sitting a good chunk of their starters. Kirk Cousins, the amazing Kirk Cousins, isn't playing. Dalvin Cook's not playing. Harrison Smith is out.
Jay Jettas is taking the day off. Yeah.
Right. Do you take Justin out then? And do you say,
no,
you know what, week off? Or you're saying, hey, go for it because
I think that's showing a lack of confidence in the player at that point. Like, and I get it.
By taking him out and saying, you believe it's saying we don't trust you?
We don't believe it's important for you to win this game. And I get it. But coaches and players aren't wired that way. You know what I'm saying? Like, yes, Ryan Poles probably wants that number 2 pick, and losing out is the way you maintain that number 2 pick, right? So, but do you think Matt Eberflus and Justin Fields give a shit about?
Oh, they don't. That's why I said you're Ryan Poles. You're sitting there and you're like, Matt, blah, blah, blah. If you're Ryan Poles, are you heavily suggesting, oh man, looks like Justin's hamstring's acting up? Or are you saying, let's go beat the Vikings?
I mean, you're talking to someone who's never – I've had coaching responsibilities before. I've never been in a front office executive role. Like, I'm not wired that way. I want Justin to play.
Yeah, that's a fair answer. I was curious on your perspective.
Yeah. Well, where do you put yourself then in that situation?
Is my fantasy team playing or no?
Sure.
Honestly, though, if I'm Ryan Poles and I'm sitting there and I'm looking at this is the final game of the season, and this is assuming, let's say we've lost to the Bills, we've lost to the Lions, and let's just say for the sake of argument, like I know for a fact, like if I lose this game, I get the second pick. If we win this game, I might end up at 4th. I just don't need Justin to play this game. I'm sold.
Sure,
Justin's
I understand that. I totally understand that. I do.
If it was last year, because there was a lot more, I feel like, up and down with Justin, I'm having him play because I still need to know what I got. I'm confident enough that I got Justin.
I gotcha. I think you'd also just have a hard time explaining that to number one.
Oh, he's
even if you are Ryan Poles.
He's gonna be super pissed. Oh, like that's the thing, and I would have to figure out the wording and maybe send him a nice fruit basket. I don't know, but I'd be like, yo.
Well,
Justin,
you can't send him anything meat wise.
Oh no,
at all.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to send him anything carnivorous.
Well, that's just not fun. Who wants to just send? Here's some oranges.
Here's some oranges for your friend.
Jaw dropping stat. What stat made your jaw hit the ground?
So within the realm of the Eagles-Bears game, we found out that Jalen Hurts was tracking for the most carries by a quarterback in NFL history. Now, obviously, that's probably not going to happen with the shoulder sprain, I believe is what it was called, when Travis Gibson landed all 270 or so pounds of him directly on that body.
Maliciously, if you ask some people.
That's hard. It's a hard sell to call that malicious, but it's shows you how dominant Justin has been in the running game. I mean, it helps that he has 5 plus 50-yard runs for touchdowns, and he would have had 6 if his heel just didn't hit the 3-yard line or whatever it was. But it's also so I found that to be a pretty that's a lot of runs for a guy, and for him to really, I mean, I'm saying inefficient, like he's not averaging 6 or 7 yards a carry. He's doing well efficiency wise, but it's like you measure it up against Justin Fields, who's got nowhere near the carries and already missed games, and he still might break a single season rushing record for quarterbacks. I just found that kind of wild. And then you go back to the 6 runs now of 20 plus miles per hour. Like he's quite legitimately, arguably the fastest man in the NFL at this point in time. It's absurd.
It's just so impressive what you continue to see. Did you see the Darius Slay clip by chance?
Yeah, I'm so impressed that it's becoming a weekly thing where someone on the opposition is saying something just so outwardly glowing about Justin, where it's like such a far cry from when Sam Shields is on the other end of the Packers secondary saying, well, all we had to do is make Mitch play quarterback.
And it's funny, if you look up that clip, the entire clip was beautiful, right? Except for the last 5 seconds where he said something about, Justin doesn't think he's a quarterback. Then that boy thinks he's a running back. And it's like, oh, you had to say that. You just
had to throw the term running back in there. Yep.
And it's like, you couldn't stop, please. And it just sucks. And it just stinks that I don't think this year there's going to be that game where you point at and say shut up, there's the quarterback kind of thing. It's just
he put up the highest passer rating against that Eagles defense of any quarterback they've faced this season.
And people refuse to acknowledge it.
But you can't pick and choose what stats you want to acknowledge and not acknowledge.
Yeah.
It's all different brushes to paint with, right? So why not just give him the credit? His 2 touchdown passes were easy. Well, do you know why the second touchdown pass was easy? Because they bit down on the threat of him running, and he just made the throw.
And at the end of the day, the 7 points, well, maybe 6 if Cairo's kicking.
Because that was the Pringle touchdown pass, right? Where Pringle kept fading. Yeah. Okay, I'm just making sure I got my plays right. Sorry, I've been doing Christmas stuff all day long, so my memory is a little bit fried.
At the end of the day, the 7 points on the board is the same as the other 7 points on the board. I don't care if Justin got it because, again, the defense sucked up trying to defend the run and he just tossed a little lob over the top. Great. That's still points. And they were in this game against the best team in the NFC the entire game. So, I don't know. Shut up, people. You guys are idiots.
Dr. West is not going to stand for your shenanigans.
My jaw-dropping stat. According to PFF Fantasy Football, Justin Fields has the most passing touchdowns thrown under pressure with a total of 4. Now, there's multiple things to this. For one, he's almost always throwing under pressure. So, there you always have to factor that in. But the fact that it just seems like he zones in a little bit more and he can just throw these dimes. I think it was 2 weeks ago, the one he had up the sideline where he just got drilled in the chest and it just fell perfectly into Equanimeous St. Brown's hands. I mean, that one wasn't a touchdown, but the fact that he can stand in the pocket like he does, the placement he has on his deep balls, I mean, that's what we were talking about seeing when he was coming out of Ohio State, and we are seeing that more frequently now.
Well, he's got a better understanding of what NFL Open is, despite the fact that his players are seldom, if ever, actually open.
Right, absolutely. And looking for those anticipation throws, JT O'Sullivan, who was on the show last week, go check that out if you didn't get a chance to. He talks about throwing anticipation throws, the capital A, like before the break ever happens. He's doing the lowercase a ones where it's like, yeah, I can kind of see it coming open. So hopefully over time, as again, the weapons get better, as he learns stuff, and it's his first year in this offense. How many quarterbacks get into the first year of a new offense and are just firing on all cylinders? It's usually year 2 at least before they really kick off.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's a perfect time. We're going to take a quick break here, and we'll pop back in with some training room roundup. All right. Now, this is the portion of the show where we end up looking at what's going on in the Bears training room. There's a lot of stuff going on. A lot of it is, a lot of it's just for sure's, right? So we know, as you can see here, I get rid of this little banner here for those who are watching because it's a little easier to see. There's just some people who are just straight up out, right? Equinemi St. Brown, concussion, not playing. Kendall Vildor, ankle, out. Trayvon Wesco, out. Not much to talk about.
I would assume that Claypool's not playing either, just based on the doubtful designation.
Right, and that's when you look at Chase Claypool and Tevin Jenkins, it's tough when on a Tuesday they had to do that. Like, we're guessing this is going to happen because it was a walkthrough. Because they were limiteds, and then all of a sudden DMPs. So in all reality, if I'm the NFL,
for white hair, I'd guess, right?
Yeah, if I'm the NFL and I'm actually talking to the Bears, I mean, like, look, you guys lied to us a little bit. We don't actually think they were limited. You might have fudged that a bit, but yes. So Chase Claypool, Tevin Jenkins, Cody Whitehair.
Gamesmanship.
I think are out. Oh, that is a little even more than gamesmanship. I got a lot of questions about Tevin Jenkins in terms of what's going on with his neck. I don't know. There's not on tape there. The fact that he had to get pulled off like he did, yes, that's not a stinger. And even a stinger, everyone keeps downplaying it. A stinger is not this little thing.
Especially for a guy who's already had 2 separate other spinal cord issues.
Right. He had true nerve symptoms down the leg. The spinal cord is one continuous cord. Problems at the bottom can have problems at the top. So this is not great right now. We're going to have to, and I would be surprised if we saw Tevin again this season, to be honest.
Yeah, I would say just shut him down, get him right as best you can, because I'm of the opinion, as I've expressed to you before, once you have a back injury, you're never 100% on your back ever again.
Yeah.
It all becomes maintenance and what your pain tolerance is for that back, just because there's so much. Even if it was just baseball, when a guy gets hurt in baseball, it hurts his lower back or his upper or his mid or upper back, whatever. That's a torque-driven sport. He's never going to be the same again. It's why Anthony Rizzo has had to suffer through, smaller deals versus getting a 5 or 6 year deal to end his contract because they don't trust it. Tevin Jenkins' back is never going to be okay. Just so everyone knows, it's going to be manageable at times, I'm sure, but there's going to be other times where it's not as manageable, and he's just going to have to miss time. Whether it's a torque-driven sport, a sport where it's all based on the contact with the ground like basketball is, or if it's a full contact sport like rugby or football. Once you have back issues, you're never going to stop having back issues.
And for like regular people, not that Bears aren't regular people, but that's why I always, if I have the person in my clinic and they're asking, hey, here are my symptoms, should I get it back? Should I get the back surgery or should I go the conservative route? Obviously, I am biased as a physical therapist, but a lot of times I push the conservative route first. Because as soon as you start diving in there and making changes to your structure, whether you're removing a lamina because it's putting pressure on the nerve, whether you are trying to, you're doing a micro discectomy where you're actually taking some of that disc out, it is never the same again. And the rehab process is tough. And most of the time, you're not truly getting back that range of motion and the strength and the stability that was really the lack of which was put you in the situation in the first place. So, now take someone who is a large
I
individual.
apologize to our listeners. I didn't mean to get on my soapbox there, but it's like it's one of those things everyone was just trying to downplay. Like, oh, he's just trying to get better from his back surgery. He's never gonna be better. It's all going to be managed in
Always
certain
managed.
ways. Yeah.
Jalen Jones sounds like at this point the bigger issue is the finger. A lot of people just question. One thing that's weird about that, though, before I go into that, isn't it? Do you find it weird that Eberflus is like, I don't know if it's broken or not?
Yeah, I mean, a broken finger is a broken finger. Fracture,
right. Or the X-ray. Boom. Like literally, you own one in the facility.
We're gonna find out Jalen Jones like a Scientologist or something and refuses to have modern medicine used on him or something.
Yeah, so I'm confused on that. Like every once in a while, there might be such a small break that the inflammation hides it on the X-ray. But like that was weird to me. But yeah, finger. A lot of people were asking, well, it's a finger. Well, can't you play with it? You especially when your hands are your tools.
Tool.
You don't want to just like have to wrap it up and have something funky happen. Where now, I mean, you see pictures of football players' hands all the time, how janky those fingers are. It's not.
Well, look at even on NFL Network, Brian Baldinger's got. I think it's his left pinky. It just kind of completely sags all the way down when he's like this, like because he physically can't. It's all messed up from his playing days.
And he wasn't a cornerback who like legitimately like needs those hands to do exactly what they need to do. So that's probably what's going to keep him out more so than the rib stuff. But the lingering rib stuff is a problem for me also just because, he had the oblique issue before and now it's the rib issue. That was the abdominal. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in the same areas. That's another situation where if I were Ryan Poles, I'm considering shutting him down since it seems like there's a lot of compensation going on.
Sure.
A couple other things to highlight here. Obviously, unfortunately, Jack Sanborn got put on IR. Probably could have come back if the season was a little longer, but it's not. So he's done for the year. Ankle should be fine coming back. Nothing to go too concerned about for next year. And then Khalil Herbert is back. He got activated off of IR. What is your thoughts on that, Danny?
That Khalil Herbert's back?
Yeah.
I understand it kind of thing because Treston Ebner kind of is just trash and should not ever touch an NFL field ever again, in my humble opinion. And I like Darrington Evans, but I think he should be on for a guy who really hasn't played much. Like, you don't want him taking too many hits, and that's the same thing for Montgomery. Montgomery is taking all of the abuse almost. So I think you might want to get your most explosive running back in the fold. Like, could you view it as like, oh no, like they're just bringing him back to try to win games, but you can't just let these guys. You can't. I mean, I understand like you can do whatever you want with him, but I don't think you can just justify like if he's healthy enough to play and the medical team is saying, hey, he can play. Like, I can't imagine them just shutting down him for a guy who's just a 6th round running back. I get he's important, but I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I think if it was maybe another position, no offense to Khalil Herbert, if it was your number 1, number 2 wide receiver, if it was your stud tackle, maybe you are having that and lost season, let's move on. I think the other layer, and this is a perfect example for this week, is his presence should help Justin out. When you have a second running back that can carry more of the load in a game that should maybe have some less throw-in, this is really going to take, as I talked about earlier, some of those hits off of him because he can just be like, all right, Khalil, go take this. Bye.
Let's get some, just this weekend, let's get some old school, like Oklahoma style or Nebraska style T formation and wishbone stuff.
Wishbone, yes.
Yeah, let's go. Old school 50s football. Here they come.
One of the plays that was actually really cool last week, and of course now I'm going on a tangent again, was when they had Monty in and taking the snap and then faked it to Justin. I mean, it only happened I think one play, but I was like, that's fun. That was cool.
Yeah, just don't make it a regular thing.
Right. And then now let's move on to previewing this game, which you need to know. The Bears actually lead the series against the Bills and have won 8-5, and have won 3 of the last 4 games, with that loss coming in an overtime game in 2014, 23-20. But in their last matchup was in 2018, where the Bears won 41-9. Do you remember that game, Danny?
And when? 20 when?
2018.
That was
the Bears defense had a field day.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was the playoff year, right? 2019. Yeah. I remember it, just not clearly. The good years are so just drowned out by crap. It's hard to keep them all straight.
Yeah. I think Leonard Floyd might have had an interception.
I recall it a little bit. Yeah.
But for this game,
I don't remember the game being that much of a blowout. But all right.
Oh, it was rough. So Justin Fields leads all quarterbacks this season with 1,000 rushing yards, while Buffalo's Josh Allen ranks fourth with 705. And when the Bears host the Bills on Saturday, it will mark the first matchup in NFL history in which both starting quarterbacks enter the game with at least 700 rushing yards on the season. Wow. Fields is the third quarterback to ever hit with at least 1,000 rushing yards in a season and can surpass Michael Vick, who had 1,039, for the second most rushing yards by a quarterback in a single season, and only Lamar with 1,206 as more. For Allen, he ranks third amongst quarterbacks this season in both touchdown passes with 30 and rushing touchdowns with 6. And since entering the NFL in 2018, Allen has totaled 170 combined passing and rushing touchdowns.
That's good. That seems good.
That's real good. I mean, with 2 more touchdowns on Saturday, he's going to pass Dan Marino for the most combined passing and rushing touchdowns by a player in his first 5 seasons in the NFL history.
So what you're saying is he's going to pass him. He's going to pass him, is what you're saying. Yeah.
But you mean this stout Bears defense isn't going to prevent him from scoring 2 touchdowns?
Yeah, maybe something like that.
So what is your perspective on just this game as a whole? Like, what does this game kind of mean to you?
Doesn't mean a whole lot of anything. The Bills are a far superior team. They're probably at this moment in time the class of the NFL, with the class of the NFL quarterbacking crop as their starting quarterback. The big thing that I want to come away with is I want the game to end, and it's going to be tough with the wind gusting off, and it's going to be so unbelievably cold. But I want to feel like Justin's at least close to the same class when it's all said and done. Like if we walk away from this game, loss or not, win or otherwise, and it feels like Justin's at least in the same realm or close to, I'd consider that a pretty big victory, like in terms of, because that's all you can hope for moral victories. Moral victories are for losers. The Bears are losers at this moment in time. So if you can come away with a moral victory.
We're going to look at this Bears rebuild MRI. So we're going to take a deep scan into what we're looking at for this game as a part of this rebuild, because they are in fact losers. That's Danny put it.
I mean, how else did you want me to?
I don't know. Lie to me. So what we're doing is if I can get this to work.
We should call you Rihanna, because you'll just love the way I lie.
See, that's when I would play like a little 10-second clip that wouldn't get us taken off of YouTube. We went through and looked at the top 5 things that we're looking for out of this game.
I already let the cat out of the bag
for the running game for both teams.
I did.
So
go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, take it. Tell me about this running game for the teams. The people are waiting.
So the big thing, I want to look at is the running game for the Buffalo Bills is effectively Josh Allen. Devin Singletary is really nothing to talk about. I know they traded for Nyheim Hines, and he's more of a receiving style back that is going to be a little more dynamic in the passing game and may be able to make people miss an open space. But the turf monster is going to be out to get you. This could be a big game for Allen and Fields on the ground, because they're both big, strong runners with the football. And I think you could be in for a nice big game from Monty in some capacity, where it's just like, this just feels like a game where he's going to get a lot of churn and burn.
Yeah.
Just his style of running, it's like
always falling forward.
Yeah, always falling forward. The big, strong, tough runs. Like, I forget what running back was famous for saying it, but it was like, I got 4 yards for you, coach. Well, I need 6. I got 4 yards for you, coach. Like, that might have been Ironhead Hayward. I might be making that up, but I think that was his famous quote, which, his both of them now play in Pittsburgh. But it's just, I think it's going to be a big game for the running. It feels like, just because most quarterbacks will tell you it's not the wet or the snow or the cold that affects throwing. It's the wind.
Yeah.
And Allen's got probably the best arm in football. Fields has got a very good arm. They'll be able to each cut through the wind, but when the wind is swirling 40 miles an hour off the lake, like that's good. That's going to be hard to manage and put a passing game together with any sort of consistency and regularity.
Well, and at least for the temperature wise, I mean, we saw what Allen did last week in terms of the throwing, right? I mean,
and he's still dealing with that UCL issue.
He's still dealing with the UCL. I mean, they put up a lot of yards, but it's just different in Chicago. That wind off the lake, like you said, it's going to be a different beast. It was actually funny. I saw Waddle and Sylvie just tweeted out. I'm curious if you were given a free ticket to this game, would you go?
No.
Would you? Yeah, there's no chance.
No way.
My fifth thing, which is similar, but does Herbert make Montgomery expendable? I think, or not just this game, but the rest of the games. I love Monty. I really do. And I think I love him more than a lot of other people do. Some of the advanced stats don't like him as much, but I think the eye test tells you something a little different at times. But, as we're moving forward and there's going to be this change of guard that's going to keep happening as we move forward, do we see enough from Herbert these last couple games that it's like, you know what, Monty, here's the deal we have for you. If you don't want that, there's the door. Because we also know, if you look at the upcoming free agent list, there's a lot of good running back free agents coming up, and that might hurt him too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on what you're saying. It's hard to just say Khalil Herbert, a 6th round running back. It makes someone expendable, especially in an era where how many true bell cow backs are left?
Roughly off the top of my head, like 3
or 4. Yeah, in anymore today's day and age, it's more like you want 3, maybe 4 of them who can all come in and tote the rock. Which right now, I'd argue, I think Darrington's been fine.
Yeah, I would agree. I liked what he's done.
Yeah, I think it's going to inevitably, in terms of Monty, end up being exactly what you said, where they're going to offer him his probably $5 or $6 million deal, and just annually, and just be like, hey, is this what you want? Think you can go get more. If not, this is what we're offering.
That's exactly where I live. I'm in this is the what I feel is the fair deal. Take it or leave it. Like, I'm not gonna not offer him something. I'm not gonna lowball him. I'm gonna give him exactly what I think he's worth, and hopefully we go from there. Yours, number 4, the O-line. Who plays where?
It's an excellent question, isn't it? Because I don't know. I would imagine Reef is playing right tackle. I would imagine your left tackle is going to be Braxton Jones. Your center is probably Mustapher. Do you then put? I don't know if in good conscience you can keep running Whitehair back out there. I think he's probably he's probably not playing anyway. But it's like, do you put Schofield at left guard, and do you try Alex Leatherwood at right guard?
Do
you flip, or do you keep Schofield at right guard and play Leatherwood at left guard? Because I wanted them to try Leatherwood at left guard regardless. That's what my ideal position for him was.
Well, I think today Eberflus doubled down on Schofield being at right guard, and then mentioned that Borum's been getting work at guard as well. So I think
I don't ever need to see Larry Borum play football ever again.
I think the question mark is Borum or Leatherwood at left guard. I don't know which it is. I was very whelmed by Leatherwood last week, and there were 2 plays in a row where he almost got Justin killed. So he needed to kick out wider on both of those. He just didn't do it. But that was also a tackle. And
I know my draft evals mean next to nothing, but I didn't evaluate him as a tackle coming out of Alabama. I didn't think he was a tackle. So,
and I think we're seeing that. Mine, we talked about this. Is Cairo a problem And I don't want to do another kicking derby. I really don't. And it's the extra points, which is the weirder part where he's missing the regular field goals he's hitting. So it's like, what's going on there?
91% on the year or something like that.
I don't know what's going on there. And I'm hoping over these next 3 games, he can just ride into the sunset and be like, look, here I am. Boom, 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 hitting my kicks. Okay, this isn't a problem this offseason. Because there's so many other things to work on. I don't want kicker to be one of them.
I agree.
You also
number 3
had Pyro. So
we just covered that. We don't need to delve back into it.
We talked about this a little bit earlier. My number 3 was the further leaps by the secondary. Can Gordon build off of his good game? Let's say Jalen Johnson's playing. Who do you have him shadow Diggs? Is that just his role now? Is he officially the shadower? And then can Jalen Jones help on the outside still?
Yeah, I think at this point that's got to be his role, right? Like shadow these elite receivers,
especially considering who's going to get paid soon, right? Because you have he's coming up, you have Cole Kmet coming up, you now have Claypool you're making a decision on with not a lot of data, and the data you have is poor. So if you're truly going to be the corner that gets paid, you better be guarding the big dogs.
Yep.
You had something similar, but there's a little more to it, just the Bears secondary versus some of Buffalo's weapons.
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of talked about this already. Like, I want to see Jalen shadow Diggs. I want to see Gordon continue to show strides, and I would like to see how they keep deploying Jaquan Brisker, because it feels like they treat him a lot like a chess piece, where they just kind of put him anywhere and everywhere, whether it be dime backer in the nickel sometimes or up high. And I would like them to continue that because I think he makes him very valuable. He actually reminds me a lot, the more I watch him, of like when Jamal Adams really started to come into his own and the Jets were just using him all over the place. So whether or not he ever gets to that level, like there was some obscene on-off field stat for him his final season in the Jets where it was like they were averaging 3 yards a carry when he was on the field, or opposing teams were, but when he was off the field, they were like averaging 7 yards a carry or something. It was something absurd. Like,
oh wow,
your strong safety is that valuable, kind of thing.
And I'm curious to see some of the specifics, like you were just talking about, though. But like, if you have Gabriel Davis, who's a good deep threat, like how does he pick him up? If you have a Dawson Knox, who is a solid tight end, how does he deal with someone with that size discrepancy? Just continuing to see him build would be something I'm definitely excited about. Mine's similar. My second one's similar to yours. I mean, which of these guys are part of your future? Braxton Jones, Larry Borom, Alex Leatherwood. Jones seems like a lock for left tackle unless you find someone pretty amazing. Can Borom, Leatherwood be something? Can Borom be a swing tackle for you? Can Leatherwood be anything? It's all up in the air right now.
Yeah.
And number 1 for you, and honestly, mine's kind of similar, so I was going to put it up there. You had Josh Allen versus Justin Fields, and I had Justin's development.
Yeah, so I kind of already touched on this and let my number 1 out of the bag earlier, where it was just like, I just want to feel like Justin belongs. Like, that he's in that same – it's hard to be Josh Allen because, like, the combined touchdown totals, as we've already covered through the first 4 seasons of his career, are absolutely obscene. But if you can walk away from this game at least feeling like that he competed with just Josh Allen and made another player, maybe even Josh Allen, have some remarkable comments about him or complimentary things to say after the game, you feel real good moving forward.
Right. Like we talked about earlier, you want one of those defensive players to get interviewed and they're like, man, Justin's a gamer. Like, I didn't realize what we were looking. Just the comments that keep coming out game in and game out.
Yeah, if Ed Oliver has something like just glowing to say, like that dude, man.
And then you want, like you said, him to be able to respond. So we saw, like, for example, the Lions game, he threw that pick 6, and then the next drive he came out and had that touchdown run. Can he do that? Can Josh Allen goes down and scores? Can Justin answer in his own way, or at least keep it, again, in the conversation?
Mm-hmm.
All right. One thing that we know of, it is the holiday season. and we need to look at some holiday wish lists. And in this scenario,
Ooh, this is
Danny
fun.
is going to take the role of some of these individuals who are asking for certain things. So, what is Matt Eberflus asking Santa? And if for whatever you're celebrating, whether it's Hanukkah, Christmas, whatever, there's only so much time I had. I did a bunch of Santa ones. It is what it is. So, what is Matt Eberflus asking Santa for Christmas?
I think it's pretty simple, right? The 3 technique. He wants his penetrating, pass rushing, defensive tackle. I think Justin Jones has been a welcome surprise here and there and been better than I even thought he was going to be. But he might be better as your rotational 3 technique, not your guy that's supposed to be the one wreaking havoc. I mean, Jalen Carter would look real good, but I also understand the argument of trade down, get more picks because you only have one inside the top 50 for a team that needs bodies. Deron Payne, I think, would be really, really nice to have pursued.
Mine, when I was thinking about this, mine was kind of like, I want a blank check for Deron Payne. You know, I would want if let's say, you know, hey Santa, literally I need this. I want Deron Payne in this defense so that when you go into the draft, like if you don't get that Godfather offer for the second pick or whatever pick you end up having, and you're like, you could in theory say, you know what, we're okay not getting Carter because we have this individual. Mm-hmm. You have options. What is Luke Getsy asking Santa?
I would say offensive line, just if nothing else, to make their true pass sets a little easier to block for. I think we've seen, and I know it's an unpopular opinion, I think we've seen their major investment on the wide receiver position. When you trade a top, what will be like the 34th pick or so in the draft for a wide receiver, that's a
lost their pick.
Yeah, so that's a big investment in a pick. Like, they're not. I just have a hard time seeing them doing it again. Like, I know there's rumblings that DeAndre Hopkins could be the next guy to force his way out, but he's over 30. Do you want to trade another second-round pick for an expensive wide receiver when you got to potentially break off both Mooney and Claypool?
Would you?
I'd be very tempted to because I think DeAndre Hopkins is awesome.
I was like, yeah, that pause is exactly where I live on that topic, where it's like, oh man, like give me DeAndre like 3 years ago, please. But it's like, but you can't. But like, man, that'd be tempting.
And I also think that they could be very interested in a home run hitting running back. Like, say they do move off of Montgomery, they could theoretically. I don't think Tony Pollard has a shot in hell of getting out of Dallas.
Oh no, they're
no way
tagging him if they can't get a deal, right?
And I think Miles Sanders could make some sense as a home run hitting threat. Same guy from that draft class, but he has his own frustrations where he's really made all his rushing yards off of like a 4 or 5 game stretch this year versus being a consistent, this is what he does every single week. There's a ton of names out there.
Yeah. I mean, I agreed with you. Honestly, I went right to O-line just because I think if I'm Luke Getsy, I'm looking at my last stop in Green Bay, they always had some solid O-lines that allowed the run game to act how it needed to and to also give Aaron the time he needed. And it all starts up front, right? If you can protect, then everything that Getsy does schematically, it can take more effect. Alan Williams, what is he hoping for under his Christmas tree?
Another outside boundary corner that isn't Kindle Vildor. And no, on the real, stability at linebacker play.
Yeah.
Because I think the rotating cast of characters that is Nicholas Morrow and Matt Adams and Joe Thomas and this who's who of dudes that aren't starting NFL backers are making his life hard. Like, I know it's easy to say off-ball linebackers this day and age are just churnable, but you don't understand how valuable they are until you're looking for one. And it's like you're just running through these like guys that aren't good. Like, but that being said, if I'm him and this kind of goes double for Eberflus, blank check for Bobby Okereke. Just he fits the system. He knows both guys. And I don't think he should be more than probably 11, 12 million bucks a year.
Mine, I went to, because I did the same thing where I was thinking about, either Deron Payne or even like a Jalen Carter, earlier for Eberflus. So, for Allen Williams, I went more towards I want 2 draft picks spent on edge. I want multiple swings and give me a pass rusher that from the outside that can actually make some difference besides the guys that I currently have. Because as of right now, the pressure that the Bears can put on a quarterback in the pocket is almost nothing. And what is Justin Field asking for this holiday season?
Help. Just help.
Anything and everything. Just help me.
Yeah. Honestly, I could see him especially in a trade back scenario where maybe they pick up another second round pick, like that's a little higher. I could really see him just because I know it's overrated in the Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase thing where they had the connection in college where it's like, duh, I like him. You can't really tell a guy no. I could see him really liking Jackson Smith-Jigba. That's just my opinion. I would it be the guy I'm necessarily quote unquote targeting, but no, I could see him asking for something like that for continuity's sake or for a guy he just knows.
Yeah,
because he's already having to develop brand new chemistry with another new wide receiver that they just spent a second round pick on.
Right, there is something to be said about that. That's why all the people last year who were going into this draft being like, oh, we got to get Chris Olave, or we got to I understood it. It made sense to me. It wasn't doable, but the chemistry makes sense. I mean, my mind went right to the easy answer of a number 1 wide receiver.
That's more what I was getting at, but I just don't, like I said earlier, I just don't see another heavy investment.
Yeah, how? And if it fell into your lap, if there was someone, if a DeAndre Hopkins was just absolutely like, get me the hell out of here or else I'm not playing, and you could get him for, I mean, now
that Ravens pick.
The Ravens pick, I would really consider it because what receiver are you drafting with a second round with assurance that they'll be half of a DeAndre Hopkins?
Considering DeAndre Hopkins at the peak of his powers is one of the 3 or 4 best in the game.
Right. I would heavily consider it.
I understand that.
But no, am I? And that's why even like we talked about a little earlier, the trade back in the Jalen Carter situation, maybe you're not getting Jalen Carter, you're trading back to 6 with the Colts and you're getting.
But it's like, I don't think there's a wrong answer for this question though. Cause if you just said like, hey, shore up interior protection, go get Ethan Posich and go get whoever, like who your guards are. Like, would you blame him? If he thinks like, you know what, I can make this work. I can make Claypool and Mooney work. Screw it. Just get me interior protection.
No, I think that's the thing. I think there's a lot of things that you could say for this particular situation that would be the correct answer.
Right.
But it's either the biggest 2, something on the O-line so he's not running for his life, or someone that he can actually trust and just say, yeet, go get this ball.
Yeet.
That leads us to our next little break here. We'll be back to finish up the show with some of our over-unders, our game predictions, and wrapping it up from there. All right, our over-under point of the show. And as everyone knows, these over-unders and the upcoming game predictions are always 100% accurate. So make sure that you are running to your nearest casino or to your phone to make, these bets.
Danny, absolutely do that.
So, Danny, over-under 75 yards rushing for Justin Fields.
Under. Feel pretty confident on that one just because the ground isn't going to be in the best shape. And they're going to, I think, really emphasize Herbert and Monty getting touches to, play a defensive brand of defense, like not defensive, like, oh, we're going to hit you, but like control the clock, control the narrative kind of football.
How about 200 yards passing for the Bills?
God, that's a big number. I'll say over, but barely, because they'll probably have like one long one to like Gabe Davis that just like completely skews it.
5 receptions for Stephon Diggs.
Over.
1.5 turnovers for the Bears.
Under. They'll probably turn it over once, but I don't think they're going to give it away multiple times.
4.5 sacks for the Bills.
They're just not as deep as Philly was.
No.
Under.
And lastly, 2.5 offensive touches for Velus Jones Jr.
None. He's not going to touch the ball. No, he'll probably get one and then he'll fumble it again because Velus.
Even last week when they had, no weapons and because, everyone's hurt, out Claypool, etc. Obviously Herbert's still not in there. He had 2. He had one catch, one run, and he fumbled it. Oh, Velus. And then game predictions. So Bills at Bears. Bills are favored by 8 points. Who do you got?
Bills win, but the Bears cover. 8 points is a big number, especially for this crappy weather that we're probably going to have here.
Yeah, I could it be high scoring? Sure, maybe. It's hard to say. It just depends on how well they maintain that field. That special grass Eberflus wanted. It'll be interesting to see how it deals with the snow and how the grounds crew manages that. But I think the Bears are the perfect team. Like we saw that last week. I don't think they're going to just get blown out in many games the rest of this year just because of how.
And it's one of those things. It's so I know it's such a moral victory, and again, moral victories are for losers. But this team doesn't quit. They just don't. They're not good, but the coaching staff clearly has buy-in from them. It sounds so dumb and cliche, but
it's true.
You've seen teams quit on coaches.
Yeah,
but
like the Chicago Bulls. Then we have Jaguars at Jets. Jets are favored by 2.5.
Jaguars at Jets. Jets are favored by 2.5. I think. Yeah, I'm gonna say just outright the Jaguars win.
Which I was surprised by this number. I
also just think
it doesn't make sense to me.
And Zach Wilson is just bad. He's not good at football.
Well, and you listen to Robert Sala's comments when he was announced as the starter for last week. It was just backpedaling because he had to say that because he's now his quarterback because Mike White
was like I put it in our little group chat that we're in. It was like someone posted the Sala comments of all quarterbacks develop at their own rate, which is true. Player development at the NFL or any professional sport level is not linear. There's no checklist like this is supposed to happen, this is supposed to happen, this is supposed to happen. Things happen. Josh Allen was not supposed to be this if you're going off of what he was supposed to be doing.
Right.
But I just don't see a path where he ever becomes good. And I read the comments and I was I just put in the chat, is Robert aware that he's the one that benched Zach in the first place?
I'm sorry, Zach Wilson has lost this locker room. When Mike White was named the starter, the entire team were wearing Mike White shirts getting on the plane.
He's Manziel with a milk kink. All right.
You saw Garrett Wilson legitimately Garrett Wilson made a lot of mistakes when Zach Wilson was quarterback. There was a lot on Garrett Wilson. Those mistakes diminished. Whether it's because he cared more, he spent more time in the room, whatever the case may be, he played better for Mike White. I'm sorry, Zach Wilson's just not the quarterback of the Jets in the future. He's not a good
Zach Wilson, as the kids say, ain't it?
No. Lions at Panthers. Lions are favored by 2.5.
I think the Lions win and cover.
Agreed.
No,
go ahead.
No, I know it's easy to crap on Campbell. I think he is a good football coach. Yeah. I think he knows what his strengths and weaknesses are, and he's obviously got an offensive coordinator that's probably going to go get poached and be a head coach probably this offseason just for everything he's done, especially making Jared Goff again look, Oh, and there's another hot take. You want to upset more Vikings fans? Kirk Cousins is Jared Goff with better PR.
Well, And as weird as this sounds, I would have put Jared Goff in the Pro Bowl before I put Kirk Cousins in there.
I probably would have too.
So, there's another hot take. Giants at Vikings. Vikings favored by 4.5, as we just talked about. Our Lord and Savior, Kirk Cousins.
The Colts are a dumpster fire, and the dumpster fire lit the paper tiger on fire. The Colts? I'm getting to my point.
Oh,
the Colts lit the paper tiger that are the Vikings on fire.
Gotcha.
And I think the Giants probably get the number covered but lose. I just don't think much of the Vikings. I just don't. Like, everything about them is just like, I think Kevin O'Connell has a long way to go as a coach. I think Kirk Cousins is still painfully Kirk Cousins. Like, I just don't see much to be excited about with that team. And they're like, haven't they won literally every single one-score game they've been in, or won everyone but one this year?
Yeah.
Like
you did that whole thing where you like flipped their records, like all the one-score wins became losses and vice versa. Like, they would have a terrible record.
Right. So whatever, they probably win again, but it's going to be like by 2 or 3 points or something like that.
Yeah. I'm really excited for when the Vikings get bounced in the first round, because
I hope it's by the Lions.
That would be epic. I'm so excited for that potential game. I hope the Lions make it. Yeah, I hope they play the Vikings. Please let that happen. Tampa Bay at Arizona. Tampa Bay is favored by 7.5. Arizona is a dumpster fire, being led by Trace McSorley. Arizona is a team that could creep into the draft pick conversation as we wind down here.
We want Arizona to win, but I think Kevin O'Connell, or not Kevin O'Connell, I'm getting my handsome former quarterback, Cliff Kingsbury. I think he's trash. And
did you watch the in-season Hard Knocks by chance?
I did not. No, I didn't.
There's a whole segment at the beginning of the last episode where, first of all, he's in the gym working out, and it's just like painfully awkward working out. And then the conversation goes about how he was, I was on the Patriots. I never played. And to be fair, he was very he owned it. Like, I never played, but I learned a lot while I was there. And it's like, that's the gold star. That's tough.
Woo! You know who else played for the Patriots and never played? Kevin O'Connell.
just churning out average head coaches. I think Kevin O'Connell could be good. I have no idea yet. We'll see.
I have no idea yet. I genuinely don't.
But Cliff is not.
Cliff is not. Kyler's hurt. Steve Keim is doing weird things that's probably getting him fired. So yeah, all is good in Arizona. I think. So who are they playing against? Sorry, we got sidetracked.
The Buccaneers, who are also currently not very good.
Buccaneers right the ship, cover, and send Arizona packing because Trace McSorley, Penn State legend, is not very good at football.
I'm gonna, just because I want to, I'm gonna say the Cardinals. I think Trace McSorley is going to throw for 2 touchdowns, and they're gonna run for another one.
I just want to know when it happened that Trace McSorley became an NFL meme. Like, he's got like a whole meme song about him and everything. Like, what in the world? What did Trace McSorley do to deserve this treatment?
I don't know. Maybe it's just the fact he's from Penn State. Maybe it's the fact he can run a little bit. I have no idea.
Yeah, whatever.
Quick side question. So do you remember when the Bears made the playoffs and beat the Seahawks, like that Seahawks team that was awful, that made it at 7-9? Yeah. Which team was worse? Like, let's say Tampa makes the playoffs because they're the best of that terrible division. That Seahawks team or this Tampa team?
That Seahawks team. By virtue of quarterback is really the only.
You don't love yourself some Matt Hasselbeck?
No, I do not. Matt Hasselbeck, though, had a very good NFL career. Like not throwing shade at him, but Tom Brady is Tom Brady.
We're going to take the ball and we're going to score.
Take the ball and we're going to score. Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
Yeah, and then he threw an interception immediately. a cock 6 and bull story, our bold prediction section. Just something unbelievable. I'm going to stick to my guns for both of them because I got one right and one I want to get right. Kyrie Blasingame gets his first touchdown with the Bears. If there's a game,
you're just going to keep churning this one out, aren't you?
If there's any game that happens, right, the snow, the cold, like give it to your fullback on the one, right? I mean, like this is the game. And then Kyler Gordon keeps it hot, gets another pick. I had that last week. I'll ride with that one again.
I'll ride with you on that one. I'm also going to ride with the Bears are going to make this surprisingly close, I think. And you're going to it's going to be like a Josh Allen hero ball fourth quarter to make the Bills fully run away and win.
I can absolutely see that. Well, that's the show we have. We did a lot, a little bit of a new thought process here. Hopefully everyone has a happy holiday. Hope everyone stay safe out there. If you're driving around, it's supposed to be slick. It's supposed to be windy. Obviously we didn't get the 14 inches that we were originally told with the European model. That's never correct. But still funky out. Hopefully the Bears game is going to give you a good Christmas Eve present of just seeing some progress from your QB.
Yeah, because your co-host here was raised by elves, apparently. And it's got Buddy the Elf. It's fun.
It does. I still haven't watched that this year.
Oh, God, I think I watch it almost 10 times a year because my wife loves it. I'm married to a Christmas elf.
What is your what are your go-to number? I have to watch these during the holiday season.
Elf is one. Both the two original Home Alones are both there. You and I are in the same age bracket, Mason. You were born in 90, right?
91.
So 91. So I'm a year older than you, or so. So we probably both grew up on the same Christmas movies. So the night before is one that we've put into the rotation. Her and I with Joe, not Joe Rogan. Jesus Christ, Dan.
Seth Rogen.
Seth Rogen, the kid from Third Rock from the Sun, who I'm blanking on, who was in Don John, Joseph Gordon-Levitt. It's like a comedy. It's completely ridiculous and off the wall, but it's fun. And then I actually recently watched one that I think we're going to put into the rotation. 8-Bit Christmas. It's from the makers of Elf.
That was good. I watched that last year.
And I thoroughly enjoyed it. We watched it the other day. And then obviously you got another classic one like Christmas Vacation with Chevy Chase, with one of the all-time rant scenes in a movie ever.
Solid list.
Yeah,
I agree. I mean, I got a bunch of those on mine. Some of the ones you didn't mention. I always also watch those old school Burt Ives ones. So Year Without a Santa Claus is up there for me with Heat and Snow Miser. This year we watched Spirited, the new one on Apple TV.
I was disappointed by it.
Really? I really liked it.
I liked it, but when you tell me it's got the largest budget of any Christmas movie of all time, I was expecting more, I guess. Wasn't bad by any stretch.
That's for me. Ryan Reynolds is my man crush. I'll 100% say that.
Ryan Reynolds is every man's man crush.
Anything he does is gold. So,
oh, Green Lantern is waving in the background. Hello.
That sucks too, because I think if you took away everything, like the CGI suit and all that, and just watched Ryan Reynolds, he was fine. It was just that everything else around it was trash.
It was hot trash. Yeah.
Well, with that.
Oh, and of course, no list is complete without Die Hard.
Die Hard is a Christmas movie. I don't care.
Die Hard's a Christmas movie, and another hot take, so is the first Lethal Weapon. I'm just saying.
I don't think I've heard that take before. This is a first for me. I'm going to have to marinate on that a little bit.
Well, if you disagree, you're wrong.
And on that note, we will leave you, Bears Nation. Hopefully, again, have a great holiday season. We'll be back, next Thursday.
All right. I'll see you next Thursday.
Lions game. Bye.
Toodaloo.